morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Research Center of Material Cultures. Welcome everybody that was here yesterday. Thank you for coming back, and also welcome the newcomers today. The Research Center of Material Culture focuses on scientific research that is related towards the collection of the Tropenmuseum Amsterdam, the Afrika Museum Bergendal, and the Museum Volkenkunde in Leiden. This particular conference has a special place as it has not taken the current collection as a starting point, but it speculates on its possible new arena, namely digital heritage. And how should museums remember the digital age? I first want to take this opportunity to thank also Wayne Modest, there. And of course also on behalf of Lisa. Because you have given us this possibility to speculate on possible new futures, so thank you so much. Although the digital is a relatively new within the museum, technologies itself are already part of the collection. For example, this Chinese compass was already collected around 1876. For the National Museum of Ethnology in Leiden. Technological innovations are considered as an important force that shape societies and cultures. It has created new kinds of cities, new kinds of work and leisure, and it transformed our perception of the world and the way we see ourselves as humans. As Marshall McLuhan already argued, media are extensions of man. They expand physical, social, psychological and intellectual functions of humans. The wheel extends our feet, the phone our voice, television our eyes and ears. From this perspective, the digital can be seen as a supplement for our brains. The fact that this medium is influenced the way we think and remember is specifically relevant for museums. Digital technology did not only provide us with new cultural objects, rituals, or practices, but it also made us think differently about memory cultures and the museum as a memory institute. The way we remember is transforming. So how can museums relate to this contemporary context? As such, we started this conference yesterday within the first session with the question, how does the digital shapes today's museum? An important aspect that returned regular during the day was the performativity of the digital. Mark Daniels emphasized that artworks that have digital components need to work. They are in their medium being only in operation. But what if they are turned off within museum depots? Robin Bose revealed myths in the genealogy of the computer and the database. He emphasized that processing is a necessity within the digital, but this is also processing desires and stories. The sharing of stories was also an important strategy for the preservation of the website De Digitale Stad. Tjada de Haan showed that this is not only about recreating the city, but it's also about staging events that bring back the community to share their memories. In the second session, we shifted our attention to collection policies. Should the ethnographic museum collect digital objects and practices? And if so, which one could be of interest? The first possible knowledge area we explored was digital politics. How does the internet open up new political spaces? Instead of creating content, media offers us platforms in which we create our own content. What does this mean for the political arena? Mirko Schäfer argued that we needed to rethink the concept of the public and private sphere as it is transformed to datification. Thomas Poole reflected on the data extracted from the Khalid Said Facebook page, the most popular online platform during the Egyptian Revolution. He spoke, among others, about a new form of connected leadership. Can we see the users as activist leaders? Collecting partly online participatory cultures questions traditional museum practices. This form of digital heritage is more likely a network platform than a traditional cultural object. Within the work of Jorge Navisi, active participation should be seen as an essential component, which needs to be collected and preserved as well. She emphasized that participation is more than performativity. Anna Decker showed us strategies that can help museums preserve online cultures. She emphasized that performativity is not new within museums. We could build further on, for example, the preservation strategies of oral history. Storytelling could be used as a method and practice for preserving online cultures. Today we would like to explore another field, digital subjectivities and virtual worlds. Also here we focus on cultural shifts that are important to understand our current digitized societies. And again, we explore different ways for museums to collect and preserve these phenomena for future generations. The compass changed our perception of the world. It made it possible to travel to remote areas and start exchanging with cultures that beforehand were unfamiliar to us. The discovery of these cultures and the broader perspective on the world made us rethink our own cultural identities as well. Nowadays, we are still part of a local community, still part of a nation, but also global citizens. But today's world is not only offline anymore. A virtual world has emerged, and ethnographic research has expanded towards these online communities as well. And as such, I'm sorry, because this is the whole compass. I wanted to show it to you. I'm going to give you one example of ethnographic research within the virtual world.
If you are trying to learn about a culture, the challenge is time. And that's something that applied to the work that I've done with gay and lesbian Indonesians, and it applies just as much when you're studying something like virtual worlds. You have to live inside the community that you're studying. My name is Tom Belsdorf. I'm a professor in the Department of Anthropology at the University of California, Irvine. And in Second Life, I'm a digital ethnographer. When I started, Second Life only had 2,500 members, and the maximum number of people in the world at any one time was about 200. I decided that I would fly over all of Second Life just to see what people had done. It took me 1 week to do it, about maybe 2 hours a day. Imagine trying to do that now. And you know, anthropologists don't just study New York City and Berlin and Tokyo. We go to little villages. From studying a small community, we can learn about the realm of possibility for human experience. An ethnographer studies how people live and think. You do what's called participant observation, hanging out. And every week I would have what was called the digital cultures chat. Anyone who wanted to could teleport in and we would chat, and that would all be data.
The video is online if you want to see the whole video, but it gives at least an example how indeed ethnography has also transposed or transversed itself into virtual worlds. But the border between the offline and online world is not clear at all. Our daily lives are increasingly structured by emails and social networking sites. Our lives are interconnected, and digital media are promoting communication in multiple ways. The global situation seems mediated in many ways. As such, also this session will not solely focus on online aspects, but explores relationships between the offline and online worlds, with questions like, how might the study of digital cultures change our understandings of citizenship, cultural identity, locality, and borders? How does the digital influence the way we perceive and communicate with the world around us? And how does the digital affect our understanding of cultural memory, affect, instead of affect? Also today, we will explore the field from multiple disciplines, which will help find solutions from different perspectives and methods. Today we will have 2 sessions. Each session will end with a Q&A, in which it is possible to ask questions to all speakers within that particular session. And this structure also offers opportunities to compare, find common grounds, differences, relationships between the different disciplines?
We focus on 3 issues. Digital subjectivities is more or less, I would say, the overarching themes. The ways in which subjectivities read your perceptions, experiences, expectations of communities and individuals, I would say, of the ways digital technology transforms our culture, produces our culture, represents our culture in quite different ways. But also the virtual, of course. I'm a digital anthropologist myself, at least I try to promote myself as such, much like Tom Boelstorff is doing. I have to say that most digital anthropologists would have a problem with that very word, the virtual, nowadays. Because it always makes things sound as if less real, less authentic. But of course we will have a discussion towards most of these ideas as well, I guess. It's interesting to see that a lot of digital anthropologists, and just talking from my own subfield, are studying the virtual, in fact, very much as material culture, as they would have studied media technology also for a long time already. And we focus much more on exactly the very material consequences of what we call the virtual. And just think about, for example, content. We look at design, we look at text. What does it do online? How does it change our perceptions, the way we represent? But also the very notions of place, time. How are they being re-inscribed in that very thing we call the virtual? And we tend to see, I think if I speak at least for my subdiscipline, the virtual more as a domain, compared to work or leisure, than something that really stands apart from things. And not so much the virtual versus the offline world, but very much as part of it. I'm teaching myself classes on digital anthropology, for example, in which I spend a lot of time trying to get away from this very illusion that the digital creates. It tries to at least push us to think of it as virtual, whereas of course it's very, again, material in its consequences. I think e-waste, one of the larger problems of our times. Think about outsourcing cheap digital labor to all sorts of cheaper places in the world. It is very material in that sense, I would say. What I like about this session, and I feel very honored to moderate this session, because I always feel the virtual comes with some sort of a paradox as well. Again, it tries to present itself as very ephemeral. It's here, tomorrow it's gone, it's always changing. And there's a lot of people who think like, hey, that may be a reason to preserve it. At the same time, it can be so banal. It is everywhere. Once being put on the online, people have the impression that it will always be there forever. I missed Charda's lecture yesterday on the digital city. I think that lecture probably already proved very much that indeed things that were online 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, are no longer there. And like I have a hard time convincing my library here, for example, to keep storing websites. And working in Southeast Asia, working in Indonesia, we hardly keep track of popular culture, youth culture, because things are gone within a few weeks' time. Even in spite of us thinking it's digital, it's out there. Which brings us to the third theme. We have subjectivities, we have the virtual, cultural memory. And what is the task of museums in preserving those very things that are digital, I would say. And I guess I've been reading through all the 5 abstracts. That will be very much the topic of your talks at least. Importantly also the question, how might preservation contribute to our understanding of digital cultures, digital subcultures? In fact, a very core task that ethnographic museums always have set themselves to do.